Hello, hello. It is your favorite American abroad, Vanessa. I know that's not very fair to other Americans abroad, but I feel cute. It's okay. Thank you so much for joining today. We have a very special guest today, Candace, who is another American abroad. She's based in London, and we're gonna have her come on the show.
This is Vanessa's world and everyone's just living in it. I am so tired.
Hi, I'm
Hi,
like trying to figure
darling.
out technology. How are you?
I'm doing okay. I'm trying to keep my eyes open. It's been a week. It has been a week because I'm launching the live last push.
Nice. You were just frozen for a bit, but
Did
I
you hear all of
can
that?
hear you now. Yeah, I just heard I clap and then
Okay.
so I was like, I feel like she just said a lot.
Don't
But
worry
yeah,
about it. Yeah, well,
how are
thanks
you
so much
dealing
for
with jet
coming on to
lag?
Wander Onwards. Oh, jet lag, girl, I've been here for like 6 weeks now. So
Oh,
we're all right. We're all right. Did
cool.
you want to introduce yourself to everyone so they can know a little bit about you?
Yeah, so hello, my name is Candace. I am a 5-year expat, so I moved abroad when I was 18. For a very random reason. I was looking at the college process and I randomly saw a Now This ad for like college in Germany. And I had never even thought about the fact that I could get a full undergraduate degree abroad. So I started looking and just kind of realized that I could study abroad in Europe, which obviously meant I can study and travel. And then I stumbled on London, and as anyone knows, it's very easy to fall in love with London. So ended up moving and just kind of haven't moved back yet and don't really have a plan to move back to the US. So really setting up my life here abroad and just have a passion for helping anyone else that kind of has this dream achieve that dream, because I know how overwhelming it is when you just want to move abroad but you just don't know the information or the options. So definitely happy to answer any questions anyone has today.
Yeah, well, you're an OG gangster. Like you came out here when you were 18, living your best life in London. Could you tell us a little bit about how you decided on London? Like, was it the cities, the opportunities? Give us a little bit of a background.
So I think for me, one of the biggest things was it was familiar. Like
Mm.
I'm a very like safe kind of practical person, Capricorn vibes. So I
Yeah.
really wanted to, seeing London was English speaking and there was good opportunity to network and career opportunities. It just kind of seemed like a natural fit. I'm
Mm.
not gonna lie, I also just kind of fell in love with like London in general. So definitely didn't. I think if I were to move like right out of college, maybe I would have more reasons. But I think at 18, you're not really thinking that far ahead. I was just like, oh, London seems awesome and I can travel. And but now I think, in my 20s and establishing my career, I think London is just so good for just being around opportunities.
Mm.
So I think that's the biggest thing. And that's what I tell myself when I think about how expensive London is. So,
Yeah, you kind of
yeah.
delude yourself into believing, yeah, it's totally normal to pay £8 for a latte.
Yeah,
Totally normal.
completely. So,
And this is actually the location that I get the most questions about because I think Americans really resonate with what you just said. Moving to London feels like a lot less of a culture shock. It's a
mhm.
major city. People speak the language that you speak typically. And so, could you tell me a little bit about what it or how did you prepare to go to London? Did you work really hard, save a bunch of money? Did you backpack? Give us a little bit of an insight.
No backpacks, but lots of saving. Yeah, so I've always worked since I was like 14. So I've always been putting away savings. When I found that I wanted to go to London, though, and I realized that London was expensive. I really went hard with work. I was waitressing every day after school. I would go straight to work and waitress till like 12 a.m., come home, go to school in my senior year, and then just keep going back and forth. So really hustled. Not gonna lie, it was a big hustle. I did eBay flipping. I just literally Googled how to make money, like every side hustle possible, and just like saved a crazy amount. I think I saved like 7,000 when I first came over.
Damn.
Yeah, so had a lot of savings. And then I left after my undergrad and moved back for my master's, and I was teaching in China for a year, and that also gave me a huge chance to save because obviously in Asia the cost of living is a lot less. But I definitely think with London, it's a good idea to just take a couple months and really hunker down and save. That way you won't have that anxiety when you first move here of, you know, finding a place, because you'll have to pay a deposit on top of, you know, a first month's rent and all those things. So I think it's really important when you're moving to London to just have a couple months and have a plan, a savings plan, because it's definitely important, and it just will make you feel so much more comfortable when you first move, because everyone knows first move expenses are the worst. But once you get over that, honestly, the cost of living in London is expensive, but at the same time, you know, you have to think that you're just living life as an everyday person that lives here as an expat. So it's actually quite affordable day-to-day costs. Whereas if you've traveled to London before, you're probably like, this is so expensive, but it is not half as expensive living here as, you know, just traveling here. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Whenever I told someone from America, oh, I live in London, they're like, oh, you must live in Mayfair and like ride private black cabs everywhere. And actually, I was making 33,000 pounds a year, taxed at like a 40% progressive tax. So my budget was tight, and still I got to live, I got to experience the city. What would you say to someone who's a little bit concerned about the lower salaries in the United Kingdom?
Mm. I would definitely say have a side hustle. I think that's my general outlook on life, is have multiple streams of income. And then it also just have a look at your spending. I think that's important. For me, I'm a very minimal person. So things that make me happy don't cost me that much money. Like I love to go to parks, I love museums, I love walking. And London is one of those cities where there are so much amazing things to do for free. Like you really have to, and this is going to be very controversial, but I feel like you really have to try to like have a great day and spend just like loads. Like, because unless you're going like movies and then afternoon tea and then drinks and then that, like, I think if you're going out, like that can get expensive. But just daily life really, and just exploring the city is quite cost effective. So I think I would say if you spend a crap ton of money on clothes every month, okay, well maybe you can cut back there, but because of that you'll be able to afford more, I don't know, groceries or, you know, just different things. So I think it's really important to look at your spending and look at, you know, what are your highest, where are you spending the most, but you don't necessarily need that. So I think for a lot of us that's clothes, random subscriptions to things we don't use, and things like that. Yeah.
And when it comes to the immigration process, so I almost got deported because I'm just a magnet for trouble. It doesn't matter what country I'm in, I'm always at risk. I was on multiple visas, so tourist, student, EEA, family permit. How was the visa process for you, and what are you currently doing?
Yeah, so I moved on a tier 4 visa for my undergrad. Moved back on a tier 4 for my MBA. And that was very tactical because tier 4 visas are the most straightforward, especially for Americans. And then that makes it also easier to transfer onto a tier 2 work visa. So I feel like it's just easier to break down all the visa types. I just have them here. So the first option is a tier 4 visa. That's an undergrad or a master's visa. The process is very straightforward in comparison, in comparison to the other visa types. If you do this visa as well, it can also give you an opportunity to network while you're here in order to secure a work visa. Also, something really amazing is they just released last year for this year and all the coming years, a post-study work visa. So that means if you study in
The
the
graduate
UK,
visa.
Yeah, if you study in the UK on a tier 4 visa, you can stay 2 years after you graduate. And then obviously in those 2 years, you can find a two-tier job that can sponsor you. You can, apply for a startup visa if that's your thing. Like there's so many options, I think, that those 2 years give you. So that is something completely new. So it's actually awesome if you haven't moved to London yet, because if you moved here last year, you wouldn't be able to do that. So that's great. The tier 5 doesn't apply to Americans. It's amazing. It's literally you just have 2 years to live in the UK, but it's for people from like Australia and Canada. So, wah. But if you have a Canadian passport, maybe you can do that. Then a tier 2. So I feel like that's the most relevant to your audience. A tier 2 is a skilled worker visa. After Brexit, the rules changed a bit, which actually makes it a bit easier. So they do it on a point system. So if you speak English, that's X amount of points. If you have certain skills, if you work, in a skilled profession, that's another couple of points. And then I think you get the most points from working a job that the UK doesn't have enough positions to fill. So like for health and social care, the UK really, really needs jobs. They really need people to help out in that sector for the NHS. So if you are a nurse or that's just your sector, it would be a lot easier because they're basically like, we need you. So we're going to give you a lot less hassle. Another option is to do an intra-company transfer. So because the US and the UK have such an amazing relationship, a lot of US companies have a UK branch and they want to send someone over. And you'd be surprised, even though you guys all love London, not everyone wants to move abroad. My family just would never move abroad. And so they're constantly, a lot of offices are looking for people to send abroad. So if you were to even just go to your manager or boss and say, hey, do you guys have a UK office? Or if they do, just ask like, hey, do you guys do intra-company transfers? I interviewed a woman named Natalie that I think you've interviewed too. And we were talking about her business, and she started on an intra-company transfer, and she literally just asked, like she just went up to her boss and asked, hey, I know you guys have an office in Austria. Can I go to Austria? And they said yes. So it's like, I feel like with opportunities, especially when it comes to moving abroad, it's all about information, and it's all about just like taking initiative and asking, because one question, now she's like a permanent there, and that's crazy that it just came from asking that one question. So I would say that's the biggest ones. You should go on tier2jobs.co. I can type that in the chat for you.
That'd be
because
great.
They have a list of tier 2 jobs. Like, let me avoid typos.
You can also do that after the chat if that's easy. Oh, there we go. Perfect.
Yeah. And then also, this applies specifically to women, but there is a Facebook group that's amazing called American Women in the UK. And you can just pop questions there about anything. Like, hey, do you guys know anyone working in this job or this sector or this whatever? And, women just reply with their stories and resources and advice. So I use that group a lot. It's really great. It's a good community. And yeah, that was a lot of talking. I'm going to let you talk.
That's totally fine. So the Facebook groups are like probably the best unknown hack, because when I was in London, I was using Americans in London for like all my resources. Like that's my go-to group. And then of course, when I was applying for jobs in London, a few things that made a huge difference that I actually talk about in my most recent reel about finding a job abroad is DMing people on LinkedIn and trying to get them on the phone, trying to get them in person with a coffee to talk about their company and a role that I was specifically interested in. Because more often than not, they have a referral system, and that referral system might actually give them some money as a result of recruiting someone. So they're incentivized to talk to you, to make that internal referral. You get juicy information about the process and about what they're looking for. So this is a super helpful way to find a job abroad. And I've done this in China, Germany, the United Kingdom, like all over the world to find jobs. How you're doing a job right now alongside your MBA, right?
Yeah, so I work 2 jobs in Candace nature. So I work for a travel startup called Troop Scout, and then I work for a creative agency based in the US. So they're both jobs I can do from my laptop, which is amazing. But I think for me, I think a year in, I already knew I wanted to stay in the UK long term. So I've been kind of networking my butt out since then. So I've kind of established some networks within the marketing space, and we'll move on to kind of that whole world after, and then continue my travel blog and stuff like that.
I think the fact that the UK has such a wonderful work-life policy really allows people like us to do a full-time job, but also pursue our side hustles, pursue our passions.
Yeah.
Would you recommend a woman who's coming to London on her own with no partner, no family? Would you recommend that path?
Yes, I've done it. I did
Tell me
it
why.
for London. I did it for China, and then I ended up stuck in Thailand for 6 months. A woman, no husband. Crazy.
Yay.
But we can do it. I think there's such stigma around women just doing things by themselves, which is crazy. So for all my women listening here, do it. Like, seriously, do it. I don't think, plus, I mean, in your case, you met your husband by moving somewhere by yourself. So it's like,
I did.
Kind of a benefit to it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the best place to go pick up a man, especially a German man, is China or Asia. I know several Latinas that went traveling in Asia, met a German man specifically, and then like got dragged across the world back to Germany with them.
That is
And
very interesting.
yeah, it's super random. I saw a quick question about whether or not you can rent furnished apartments in London. You can. The furnishings are horrendous. They are super ugly and likely from IKEA, but if that's what you need, then that's there for you to take advantage of.
I've had decent furniture, but I love IKEA, so I'm very
I basically was in a found apartment because my landlady, bless her, love her, Sue. She was kind of a hippie and just like had a bunch of like found furniture across the years. And we lived in a 42 square meter flat for 6 years with all that found furniture as working adults, which never really made sense to our friends when they would come to our house, but that's okay. Yeah. How did you find your apartment or your flat in London?
Yeah, so I've had multiple flats while I've been here. I've moved a lot. We originally went on Ideal Flatmate or Spare Room. No, it was Spare Room. I originally went on Spare Room. That's how I found my first one. And then my second one is crazy. I was renting an Airbnb and I loved it. And then words. I was renting an Airbnb and I loved it. I just had a French lesson, so my brain is like in 2 languages right now. And I was like, I love this place. I wish I could rent here. So I ended up asking the Airbnb host, like, would you rent out this space to me? And they said, yeah. So that was completely random. But I would definitely recommend, if you're doing flatmates, Ideal Flatmate, because they do compatibility test. And so they match you with people that you would get on with. And I think one of the most important things when you first move to London is to make friends. I'm going to be really honest. It's a really lonely city if you don't make the effort to make connections, put yourself out there, join hobbies, and really just like have strong human connections, especially with lockdown. Like having just friends I know I can call and go on my daily walks with has been everything. So I would definitely suggest you make that your number 1 priority when you first move here, is to make friends. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually made friends through CrossFit, which sounds like super lame, but normally CrossFit is filled with people who are professionals because it's an expensive sport. They usually have like very clear driven goals and like A-type personalities. And that's a little bit of me.
I met some through yoga and they were the same type of women. It was amazing. Yeah, I did free. It was free though. There were like free yoga classes at this yoga studio in Canary Wharf, and I used to go every week, and they were just the most amazing, like kind, nice, like obviously, loves their yoga, just amazing women. So I met a lot of women that way. When lockdown ends, that's 100% my plan, is to join, yoga, different fitness, language classes. Like really, when you're looking to join these things, be very intentional with what groups you're joining and where you're meeting people, because obviously likeness attracts likeness. So if you're like, oh, I don't really want to party this year, maybe you shouldn't be meeting all your friends like at a pub or
At the
like
pub.
on a night out. So yeah, all my friends from like 18 to 20 were from pubs or from nights out. All my friends from like 20 to now are from yoga, and my life is a lot better.
Yeah,
So,
the quality of life
definitely
once you
it's
stop
nice.
going to clubs increase.
Yeah.
What would you
Oh,
say that
100%.
London is? Would you say that London is a safer, less safe place to be? People are always so worried that once they leave America, they're going to be robbed at gunpoint as soon as they get off the plane.
I always say this. I always say that women are living, breathing here every day. The only difference is they're not American, or they're
Yeah,
not, Indian, or they're not Chinese. Like, women are here and they're
yeah.
living and they're safe and they're fine. This goes for everywhere. So I think as Americans, sometimes we have this false sense of other when we go to other countries, thinking it's more dangerous, it's more X, Y, and Z. But I think the truth is, a lot of the times, America's actually the place that you should be like
Yup.
afraid of. Like in terms of like racism, for example, so many people are like, I'm so worried it's going to be so racist when I leave America. I'm like, every like racist incident that I can remember happened in America.
For
So
sure.
2 + 2 isn't equaling 4. So I
No.
think sometimes we really kind of, as Americans, just are all in our own bubble, and we kind of forget the fact that, like, we're not in the safest place, and we're not, have the best of X and Y and Z. So I think when you move abroad, you definitely discover that, at least for London, for example, obviously things do happen. For me, I haven't had anything happen outside of, catcalling, which I think every woman experiences. But it's been generally safe for me. Yeah.
Same for me when I was living in Brixton for 6 years. And like Brixton's not historically the safest place in London, but still I was walking home by myself at like 2 o'clock in the morning and never had any like serious run-ins. Whereas in comparison, I was held up at gunpoint in Los Angeles
Oh my
during
God.
Pride while I was on a date. Not by my date, just on a date.
Yeah.
And my date was actually from France, and so he was really impressed with how I handled the scenario, because I like whipped my wallet away, and the guy chased it, and I drove away real fast. And he also, this, I'll never forget this. He was describing the perpetrator as someone that looked like Shaquille ONeal, like other black people before. He was like white French. And I was like, no, 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 no. There are specifics about the person that robbed us. It was such a weird situation, but abroad, I've never. Would you? Sorry, go. Oh, were you gonna say? People are saying I found. Oh, you're buffering. Okay, give it a second. One
Yeah, you're
person.
buffering.
Okay, we're back though. One person mentioned that it depends on the country. I mean, that's like it for every situation. That's what we're trying to explain. Every country has its problems. Every country is more or less safe for different groups of people and at different periods of time. So why would you create this fear for yourself and limit where you get to go based off of like random chances of something happening?
And that's with everything. I think that's with women, that's with Black women. I get DMs all the time from just other Black women in the States that like didn't even realize that we did this. They're like, wait, we travel like to Europe and we live here and like we do all this. And I'm like, yes. And that's a whole other topic about representation. But I think it's like, as crappy as it is that we don't have as many role models to see of people doing the things that we want to do, you really just have to say, okay, well, I'm just going to be the pioneer then. I didn't see any other Black American women living in London before I moved to London in 2016. But I said, I want to go. So I'm going. And I think to anyone that thinks that, you know, whether you have a disability, whether it's race, whether it's sexual orientation, anything, I think, you know, you will definitely regret more the fact that you didn't do it than the fact that you were basically playing by someone else's rules that says it's not safe, that says that you can't do X because you're Y.
Mm,
You know, if there's something really pressing on you that has a dream and wants to do something, especially when it comes to moving abroad,
mm,
I can guarantee there's someone like you in the world, moving and breathing, that has had that
mm.
same experience, that is also the representation you want. So, you know, kind of seek them and find them. I'm here. But then I think just don't be afraid to go after dreams because of limitations that you didn't even create.
Mm.
I think is really important.
Hmm. Hmm. We have another good question. Do you feel like you live a healthier lifestyle there? I specifically do in Germany because one, the organic food is the same price as normal food. Like the food quality here is unreal. Also, I'm walking everywhere, so I
Mhm.
get my steps in. I'm constantly moving around. What about you, Candace?
Oh yeah. So one, I don't have a car, so I'm walking everywhere.
Yeah,
And people will be, I feel like it's so surprising when you move here, but groceries in London are actually
so cheap.
insanely cheap. Like you can
Mm,
buy a whole thing of like fruits, veggies, rice, pasta, all these things for like 20 pounds and have food for like a whole week. Like it's, I'm still trying to figure out why everything else is expensive, but groceries are cheap. I still haven't, I'll let you know. But
okay.
yeah, I think between walking everywhere, and then just grocery prices. So, you know, you can get organic goods and just really great groceries for not a lot of money. I think I live a healthier lifestyle here too. Also, work-life balance. So you get like
Mm,
6 weeks of vacation in the UK. The US is 2 weeks.
yeah, maybe.
I've never like lived adult life in the US, so I don't really
Mm,
know what that's like, but I can imagine it's great. So
no.
I think they definitely value more work-life balance here and
Mm,
really put an emphasis on vacation. Like I feel like in the US, if you go on vacation, it's like, oh, you're not working hard enough. But like here, it's like, oh, I'm going on vacation. And it's like, oh, I'm going next week. Like everyone loves going on holiday. It's like the thing.
mm,
And they don't really glorify as much like working yourself to death.
no.
Maybe more in London than the rest of Europe, but it's not really in the European mentality to value work above just loving life and living, which I think is the most important thing.
Oh, for sure. So shout out to Germany. I have 40 days of holiday this year. 40. And then we have like 18 national holidays.
Give me one.
Uh, it's super, I'm probably
Take
exaggerating.
off.
It's probably more like 14 national holidays, but I legitimately have 40 days of holiday because of the way that the unions work here. If you work overtime, it has to be recorded. You either get money or time off. I
Yeah.
know people who work for major corporations who have worked too long according to the union. So they had like 20, 30 extra days at the end of the year that the company was like, I would rather you take off those days than us pay you for them.
Yeah.
So they had all of a sudden like 60 days of holiday at their disposal. I wanted to comment real quick on a question. Is 9K enough to move to London for 3 months, hopefully longer? My monthly budget in London was £1,500. That included rent, transportation, phone bill, food, going out, everything. So if you're trying to put a deposit down, so like first month, last month, and then some additional money, 9K is totally going to be enough. And then, of course, it's all about how you spend it.
Yeah. I would definitely say that's enough. I think too, there are so many things you can do to cut cost.
Mm,
I have a blog called 27 effortless ways to save money in London. If you just go to my link in bio and click save money in London, it'll pop up. But I would definitely say one of the big ones is live in zone 2 or 3. So zone one
mm,
is central London, but zone 2 or 3, for example, Greenwich, is a great area, is close enough to central where you still feel like you're in the London that I'm sure we all imagine when we think of London, but you're not paying crazy rent prices. Also find
mm,
flatmates. You can, my cheapest rent here, I paid like £500 a month. I've always paid between 500 and 800 pounds a month,
mm.
and always had flatmates. So it really depends on like how you spend it. But I think that's definitely enough. When I was a student, some people were like broke as a joke. I honestly
Mm.
don't know how they were surviving, but they made it work. So if they could live on those amounts, you could definitely live on 9K.
For sure. And for
Yeah.
Berlin, it's even cheaper. So Berlin, the average salary is about 40,000 euros, taxed at pretty high rates. And I've seen rent like shared accommodation for like 300 euros on the outsides of Berlin. On the inside bits of the city, it will cost you anywhere from like 500 euros to 1,000 for a room. Of course, we're going to save this live. Hey, Gabby. So actually, we're coming to the end of our live, Candice. So thank you so much for being here.
No worries.
Can you remind everyone where they can find you and if you have any projects coming up?
Yeah, so you can find me at Candice Abroad. I guess you can click somewhere. I also have a London travel blog. So if you're ever coming to London, I have like dozens and dozens of London blogs for you. CandiceAbroad.com. I have a podcast. It's a travel podcast where I just interview people like Vanessa, anyone combining their life with travel, but not in a backpacking kind of way, like making their whole life revolve around travel. It's called Abroad & Co. And if you are moving to London and this is all completely new to you, I actually wrote a like 200+ page ebook called Across the Pond, A Young Expat's Guide to London Life. If you click the link in bio, everything's just link in bio nowadays. So
Yeah.
just link in bio. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Candice. I'm going to save this IG Live. And actually, I'm going to start moving all these interesting stories about women of color just abroad and living their best lives in my masterclass, because I think it's always helpful to hear from people who are doing it currently in real time. So thank you so much for being a part of this.
Awesome. And if any of you guys ever have any questions, please DM me. I will probably respond with a voice note. I love to talk. But yeah, just DM me. I'm always happy to help anyone with, achieving any dream. So yeah.
Me too. Okay, Candice, thank you so much. And I will talk to you in the DMs.
See you. Bye.
Bye.